So just a couple days ago, I made a video on Bulls trade proposals that have been floating around the media and my reaction to said trades. And if you caught that video, which if you didn't, I'll leave a link to it in the description. But if you saw the video, most of the trades were pretty bad for the Bulls. And quite frankly, didn't really make sense, whether it be for the Bulls or both sides, really. Now, I had a couple people in the comments say, more often than not, we hear from you about trades that you don't like. Well, what are some trade scenarios in which you would like to see? And it's a fair point. So in today's video, I'm going to be going over 5 trade scenarios that I like and would like to see the Bulls make. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. So I'll admit, I love coming up with trade proposals in the NBA because as a fan, there doesn't have to be any truth to the trade scenarios that you put together. You don't have to base it on any rumors going around the league. You can form whatever trade you would like. That being said, in these trade scenarios that I'm going to show you, I am going to be doing ones that I find to be realistic, that actually work for both sides, and that actually make the money work. So as much as I would like to see the Bulls, say, trade Lauri, Markkanen for Giannis, we all know that that trade can't and would never happen. So keep that in mind. These are trades that I would like to see, but realistic trades. And of course, I will be using ESPN's trade machine to display these trades and ensure that each of them are actually successful. And one final point to add, I am not factoring in whether the Bulls get lucky in the lottery and land a top 4 pick, since that is yet to be determined. So I'm only basing these trades off of what we currently have to work with right now. And then maybe I'll do an updated one should the Bulls actually land in the top 4 of the lottery. Now, the annoying thing about ESPN's trade machine is that it does not allow for sign-in trades. So in this example, I can't actually include Lauri Markkanen as an option. I can't drag him into one of these team trade proposals. It won't actually allow you to do that. So for the purposes of this video, I'll just be calling it out when Markkanen is included in said trade. So in this first trade scenario that I've created, this is kind of a go big or go home proposal. The rest of these are probably a little bit more underwhelming. So in this instance, the Bulls would trade Thaddeus Young, Tomas Satoransky, Al-Farouq Aminu, Coby White, Troy Brown Jr., and a sign and trade for Lauri Markkanen, since I wasn't able to add that in here, and since I also can't add that to the screenshot as well, but the Bulls' second round pick for this year's draft and their first round pick in 2025 in exchange for De'Aaron Fox and Marvin Bagley III. Now, I know this sounds like it's going to be a lot to give up for the Bulls, and I personally am not one to give up on Coby White or Troy Brown Jr. given their age and their potential, but if we're talking about trading for De'Aaron Fox, one of the up-and-coming point guards in the league, only 23 years old, averaged 25.2 points per game and 7.2 assists. When the Bulls are looking for that starting point guard for the future to build around Lavine and Vucevic, yeah, you need to make that trade and to move on from Coby White. Fox isn't the best three-point shooter. I think that's usually the biggest knock on him, but the Bulls already have great three-point shooting with Lavine and Vucevic, and hopefully in this scenario, the Bulls would also be able to bring on someone who can help them spread the floor even more, maybe even someone like Doug McDermott in free agency. But even for Fox's flaws, shooting aside, he is still an elite scorer and slasher to the basket and also a solid playmaker, something the Bulls need. Now, in the video that I made about my reaction to the Bulls trade scenarios from various media outlets, the one that I actually liked was the one that had the sign-in trade with the Kings of Markkanen in exchange for Marvin Bagley. So I've also included Bagley in this deal as well, really keeping that trade consistent since Markkanen is also added in here. I think the Kings have already started giving up on Bagley. Bagley has expressed that he's not happy in Sacramento, and I actually think that Bagley is a decent player in this league that still has potential and a lot to offer for various NBA teams. He gets a bad rap because he was drafted before Luka Doncic and Trae Young, but that wasn't really his fault that the Kings are a disaster and chose him as the number 2 overall pick ahead of someone like Doncic. Either way, Marvin Bagley is only 22. He's averaging 14 points per game and 7.5 rebounds on good efficiency. He's even started to develop his three-point shot a little bit. I think it's a nice piece for the Bulls to add to the bench behind Vucevic at the 5, or even Bagley could start at the 4 in the event that the Bulls aren't able to re-sign Tice and they want to keep Patrick Williams at the 3. Now, you might think, well, why would the Kings go for this? Well, first of all, let me remind you, it's the Kings. You never can tell what type of direction they're trying to go into as a franchise, and that's probably why they have the longest playoff drought in the league. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Kings try to blow this team up, starting with De'Aaron Fox. And if you're able to get 3 young players in Lauri Markkanen, Coby White, Troy Brown Jr., and the assets that the Bulls would give up for their first round pick in 2025 and their second round pick for this year, that gives the Kings a lot of assets to work with if they choose to start over. They get a couple solid veterans in Thaddeus Young and Satoransky, and an expiring deal, and really Aminu, who I just kind of threw in there to make the money work, because Fox is going to be making over $28 million next season and is actually on a fat max contract all the way until 2026, which is risky if you're the Bulls, of course. You have to, hope that works out. But I honestly see De'Aaron Fox being one of the best point guards in the league in just a few seasons, given where he is at right now and the fact that he hasn't even hit his prime yet. So I really do think that this trade works out for both sides. I mean, to be honest, it probably benefits the Bulls more so than it does the Kings, and I'm probably just wanting to take advantage of the Kings and their incompetency at the front office. But this is a trade proposal that I would absolutely love, because I think if you add another star like De'Aaron Fox onto this team to complement Lavine and Vucevic, you're going to be in good hands, and good hands for a while, given the age of De'Aaron Fox right now and the fact that you would have him locked into a long-term contract. This next trade is a little interesting because it's probably not as sexy or appealing as the last one for the Bulls, but my guess is the Blazers are likely going to blow up their team. And I know a lot of Bulls fans have been saying we should try to trade for Damian Lillard. Well, that just isn't going to happen. And I put out a video on why it won't happen, so I won't go into it that much here. But in this trade scenario, the Bulls would trade Satoransky, Aminu, and Coby White. Now, what I like about this trade is, well, one, the Bulls get some bad contracts off their books in Satoransky and Aminu. Now, again, you probably are asking, well, why are we wanting to trade Coby White in this scenario? Well, I really don't want to trade Coby, but if you actually look at the Bulls roster, there aren't a whole lot of trade chips that they can work with. Coby is one of the few guys on this team who I consider to not be untouchable, like Lavine, Vucevic, and Patrick Williams, but he provides enough value for another team that would actually be willing to make a trade for the Bulls, given that he's young and still has shown potential. So the Bulls would get Nurkic and Robert Covington in return. I like the idea of bringing someone like Nurkic in as a backup center behind Vucevic. He's on a fairly friendly contract for his level of production. He's also on an expiring contract as well, so the Bulls don't have to commit to him long term if it doesn't work out. He's also only 26, so it's not like he's an older player that you'd be bringing in that might be going on the decline soon. He's averaging 11.5 points per game, 9 rebounds, and he's actually shooting decently well from three, 40% from three. Not that many attempts, of course, but he can give you some spacing off the bench in that regard. He's also really elevated his passing for a big man, averaging 3.4 assists, and we all know Arturas loves quality passing big men. And then Robert Covington, I mean, he's not really, something really to get excited about if you're the Bulls, but what he does provide is solid defense and is a pretty versatile player, and that he can play the 3, 4, or even the 5. And again, this gives the Bulls some needed defense, more veteran experience, and versatility that can come off the bench. And really, for the Blazers, I mean, the prize of this trade is Coby White. I mean, if they do in fact blow up this team, and that includes Lillard, well, this gives them a young point guard that has potential that they can work with. Obviously, Coby White is not going to replace Lillard, not even close, but if the Blazers look to rebuild, they're going to be looking for younger talent and draft capital, and Coby White is something the Bulls can offer in exchange for these two veteran players that the Bulls could be bringing off the bench. Also, guys, for the scenarios that I am including Coby White, this generally assumes that the Bulls would have to bring in a true starting point guard in free agency as a result. They may look to trade Coby as a trade piece since he has more value than a lot of the other guys on the roster. This next trade, I've only got what the Bulls would get, and that's because in this scenario, this would be actually a sign and trade for Lauri Markkanen, where the Bulls would receive Nerlens Noel, also a sign and trade since he's going to be a free agent, and Kevin Knox. Now you're probably thinking, why would the Bulls want this at all? Well, you have to remember, there is a strong likelihood that the Bulls are going to have to give up Lauri Markkanen for nothing and let him walk in free agency. So if you can get anything in return for him, that is a positive. Now, for these two guys, coming from the Knicks, Nerlens Noel gives you strong defense and rim protection off the bench behind Vucevic, or he can even start at the 4, as Noel is capable of playing power forward. That way it gives you defense next to Vucevic on the court. Noel also was one of the best shot blockers in the league this past season, averaging 2.2 blocks per game. And he's also just an all-around scrappy defender in the post. Again, something the Bulls need, especially if they can't keep Tice. And then, of course, Kevin Knox. I mean, This is more for the Knicks' benefit in that they clearly have given up on this guy, and I think most of the league, is kind of viewing him as a bust for the most part. But because his rookie contract is expiring next season, this gives the Bulls an opportunity to see if perhaps Knox just needs a change of scenery, and that potential that everyone was expecting of him when he entered the league as the 9th overall pick in 2018, that maybe somehow the Bulls can extract that potential out of him and make this a steal of a trade. He is only 21 after all, and there have been multiple players throughout league history who were written off at an early stage, similar to how Knox has been, who completely revitalized their careers going to a different team. And hey, if it doesn't work out, well, then you don't extend him a qualifying offer and you let him walk once his rookie deal expires at the end of the season. All you would lose is Markkanen, who you likely would have lost for nothing anyway. I'll try to go through these next two quickly, but as you can see with this one, this is a trade with the Pacers where the Bulls would get Miles Turner and Justin Holiday. Yep, bringing back Holiday in exchange for Lauri Markkanen and Al-Farouq Aminu, and the Bulls' second-round pick for this year's draft. Aminu again added in for salary filler and really for the Pacers to take on this bad contract. Now, I've heard some people say that the Bulls should do a sign-and trade for Markkanen in exchange for Miles Turner straight up, but that's likely not enough to really make it worth it for the Pacers, so including a second-round pick helps you in that regard. And I think taking on Justin Holiday's contract, who the Pacers are likely wanting to get off of their books since he still has 2 years left on his deal. But I actually like Holiday for the Bulls coming off the bench, even though I know he's a little older, but he's an experienced veteran. And again, really the prize of this trade is for the Bulls getting Miles Turner, for Markkanen, and that Turner is one of the best shot blockers in the game, one of the best rim protectors in the game. And again, similar to what I explained earlier, if the Bulls aren't able to keep Tice, this gives you a great defender in the front court to put next to Vucevic. I know Turner is a center, but he's also played the 4 here and there throughout his career, and I think putting him alongside Vucevic in the starting lineup with Williams at the 3 gives you that perfect balance between offense and defense. For the Pacers, what do they get out of this is, well, they get a young stretch 4 who I believe still has potential to be a great player in this league, and Lauri Markkanen. He just doesn't really fit with this roster on the Bulls with Vucevic and Lavine, and the Pacers are in need of offensive players, so it allows for Markkanen to thrive in a new environment who needs offense, an area where he excels more at, rather than being what the Bulls see him as right now as a defensive liability in the starting lineup. Then finally, this trade, the last one, is with the Boston Celtics, in which the Bulls would trade Aminu, Coby White, Lauri Markkanen, and a second-round pick in exchange for Marcus Smart and Tristan Thompson. And I like this trade for the Bulls because it gives them a strong, scrappy defender, a hustler, an energizer, and Marcus Smart. I'm actually not a big fan of Marcus Smart as a player because I can't stand his flopping, but I think if he was on my team, I would appreciate his willingness to do what he can to get in the other team's head and pestering his man that is playing on offense. And I mentioned this in the video where I reacted to the Bulls trades, but the Bulls have minimal defense in the backcourt. The bulk of the Bulls defense lies in the front court with guys like Thaddeus Young, Patrick Williams, and Tice. So this gives the Bulls a strong defender coming off the bench in the backcourt. And Smart isn't a bad player on offense either. He averaged 13 points per game this season, along with close to 6 assists. So he gives you some playmaking on offense as well. On top of that, this also gives you Tristan Thompson as a backup center behind Vucevic, but he can also play the 4. Thompson, a bit older, not really that impactful, and has declined somewhat since his days on the Cavs playing alongside LeBron, but he's on a fairly friendly contract, and it's an expiring contract as well. And again, like some other trades, you're getting some value in return here in a sign and trade for Markkanen. Yes, you're giving up Coby White, which I've said for a while now, it's too early to give up on Coby given he's only 21, but the Bulls have to prioritize defense this season, and if you can get a strong defender in Marcus Smart, and this also assumes the Bulls bring in another starting point guard in free agency, say Alonzo Ball or another veteran point guard, I think it's worth taking a gamble on to really round out the team. Again, I'm not for giving up on Coby White. I think you can still work with him as your point guard for the future, but if the Bulls do in fact bring in Lonzo Ball and they choose to prioritize Coby White as their point guard, or I guess not prioritize Coby White as their point guard, then you might as well explore trade opportunities for him, given he still has some value that you can get someone that plays defense in return. Anyway, those are 5 trades I think make the most sense for the Bulls given where they are at right now and their current needs on the roster. Obviously, there are still downsides to all of these trades, and I'm sure some of these might sound good on paper, but maybe in reality might not pan out when you actually put them into practice. But I would love to hear what you guys think. What do you think of these trade scenarios? What do you like the most? What do you like the least? And also feel free to drop in your favorite trades that you would like to see the Bulls make this offseason. Again, try to be as realistic as possible. And guys, as always, be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan. Thanks again for tuning in as always, and I will catch you in the next one.